And, what I want to do is kind of go through a section of Black Labor, White Wealth by Dr. Claude Anderson. If you want to see other books I recommend, you can go to thedrboycelibrary.com. That's thedrboycelibrary.com. And there's a section that's at the very beginning of the book, and I want to hit this, and it really speaks to the hopelessness that you see with Black people. You see, what we have as a problem in our community, which is a very, very deep and insidious issue, is that we have a lot of Black people who unfortunately have been trained to be incredibly hopeless, who just it's almost like they don't want anything to work out. You know what it reminds me of? It makes me think about episodes. You remember episodes of Good Times where you just knew every time James got the job that by the time the show was over, something was gonna happen. He's gonna have to come home and say, "Baby, they took the job away. We ain't gonna get to leave the projects," right? And at first, everybody's happy, like, "Oh, James, this is wonderful. We're going to get to move." And JJ's like, "Dynamite," right? He's really happy. The whole family's happy because finally you're thinking they're going to move out the projects. But by the time the show's over, they got to keep that family in the projects so they can keep that show going. When they finally got out of the projects, what happened? The show was over. The show ended, right? Good Times was gone forever. When they finally got out the projects, that was like the last episode, right? So, yeah, right. Somebody said some people hated the show because of that. I agree. Sanford and Son, same thing. They ain't never going to leave that junkyard, right? So a lot of Black people, in my opinion, feel a lot like the family did on Good Times. They feel like we're supposed, like the way the story is always supposed to end is with white people ahead and Black people in second place, or Black people maybe in third or fourth place. And this is not something that just came out of nowhere. This is from hundreds of years of psychological conditioning on the part of white supremacists to keep Black people programmed in a specific way. There was a deliberate effort to keep Black people as hopeless as possible, because when you have hope, you try. When you have hope and faith and you really believe, then you go out and you try it, even if you don't think it's going to work, right? And it's ironic, right? Because Black people are people of faith. We go to church. But the question is that enough faith to actually believe that you have the ability to engage in deliberate action that is necessary to fix your condition? Or is it faith that you have no power at all, but there's a Superman somewhere in the sky that's going to come down and save you? Maybe the Superman is the white man. Maybe the white man is your God, right? For some Black folks, that's kind of what it is. I need a job. I'm going to pray to God that a white man comes along and offers me this thing that I can't create for myself, right? I am hopeless in the sense that I have no hope that my own ability can ever do anything to fix this other than me begging, other than me on my knees and praying, either praying to God or white Jesus, or praying to the white man. Now, I'm not making fun of people that go to church. I'm not saying the church. In fact, actually, if you study science, the more you study science, the more it leads you back to God, the more it leads you back to a higher power. Right? If you understand molecules and atoms and quantum physics and all in the Big Bang and the history of the universe and how all this came to be, you say there's got to be a higher power, because I didn't create myself. There are trillions of little processes that occur inside my body that keep me breathing every day, that keep me moving every day, and I don't control any of these processes. I can't make the cells in my body stop multiplying or doing whatever they're doing to keep me alive, right? So there is a higher power. So I'm not talking about it. So if you go to church, don't get offended. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about this idea of hopelessness, the hopelessness that leads you to think that you have no ability to fix your condition, and the hopelessness that also leads you to feel like cast members in the TV show Good Times, where every time somebody comes along, a Boyce Watkins kind of person comes along and says, "Wait a minute, we ain't got to be poor if we don't want to be. Just save your damn money and invest it, right? Just start a business. You don't have to be unemployed if you don't want to be. Just teach your kids how to start a business." Well, a lot of times I'm going to run into the people that I refer to them as the Negro naysayers, who, because they're so conditioned to be hopeless, will literally work extremely hard to block every possibility that there is, because me showing you that there's hope is busting a paradigm. It's busting an ideology that they're deeply committed to. The ideology is that Black people can't do anything for themselves, that we have no ability to make our situation better. All we can do is pray and beg and hope for the best. And that gives, and the thing is, when you're hopeless, hopelessness is the gateway to laziness. hopelessness is the gateway drug that drags you into laziness. It allows you to have an excuse to not try, right? In fact, there's a whole theory of motivation, and I'm going to look this up because I can't remember all the components of it. I learned it when I was studying management when I was in undergraduate. Let me see. Let me see. My triple major in college was finance, economics, and business management. That's right. So I had to take some management classes. See, it's funny. I can't even remember. I got 2 bachelor's degrees and 3 in a triple major. My bachelor's degrees were in finance and economics. My triple major was finance, economics, and business management. And I was going to get the 3rd degree. I had like 6 more credit hours, but I didn't want to be stupid. I didn't care much about the bachelor's degree or the master's degree. I only wanted my doctorate. And so I remember in this theory, one thing that they said was that when you look at motivation, it was all about how do you motivate your employees and how do you get them to do certain things. And they said in the theory of motivation that there had to be at least 3 components there. And I don't remember the 3rd, but I know one of them was that the thing that you're trying to get them to do, there has to be value to it, right? Like if I say, I want you to run down the street naked for $1, you're not going to want to do that. You're going to be like, well, it ain't worth it, right? But if I say I want you to run down the street naked for, $1 billion, oh, you'd be ripping your clothes off before I can finish the sentence, right? So what's happened is that the reward is very high now, so you're motivated to go out and do it. But the other component was something that relates to hopelessness or faith in yourself, belief in yourself, belief in that it's actually achievable. So for example, if I say to you, there's gold in the backyard, and I want you to dig for the gold. The gold's only 2 feet under the ground. And I want you to dig for the gold. If you find the gold, you're going to have an extra $1 million, right? Well, that's quite intriguing. But what if you don't believe there's any gold back there to begin with? What if you don't believe me? What if you say, you know what, Boyce got me wasting my time. Ain't no gold back there in the backyard. Are you going to get up and are you going to go do it? Or are you going to sit still and keep watching TV? It doesn't mean, because if you sit still and you don't try, it doesn't mean you don't want the money. It just means you don't believe that the money's actually there. You don't believe that the gold is actually in the backyard. So so that comes down to whether or not you believe that the goal is actually obtainable. You understand? That you have faith that you can even do it. And so for Black people, a lot of times, when you propose solutions to problems, one of our biggest impediments, one of our biggest challenges is that we have no belief in ourselves. We have no belief that we can change our condition. We have no belief that we have the ability to be self-reliant. We have no belief that we have the ability to overcome racism. We have no belief that we have the ability to overcome poverty. We have no belief that we have the ability to obtain true strength and unity. So what happens? Think about this. Go back to that theory. Even though the rewards for unity and strength and wealth building, all those things are great, you don't try because you don't believe that it's possible. You really believe that because you were born poor, that you can't get out of poverty. That's why I have to rack my brain coming up with the most basic basic/complex methods to explain to people to say, you ain't got to be poor, actually. The math says that you don't have to be poor. The math says that if you were poor in 1985 and you were determined to not be poor by 2005, that you could actually not be poor. And so I run into my friends that really say, no, Boyce, that's not true. Black people, when they're born poor, they got to stay poor and there's nothing they can do about it. And they will literally spend more energy trying to sort of hold on to this idea and block possibility that they spend so much energy doing that I'm thinking, wow, if you put that same energy into finding possibility, you would be amazed at what you could do. Right? I mean, just if you flip it on its head, what if you took the same amount of time, the time you spend arguing with me, calling me a hater because I said Black people can do better for ourselves, get mad at me because I said that we can actually fight back. I mean, it's crazy, right? Why would you get mad at somebody who's trying to help you, who's trying to provide solutions, right? That same energy, why not use that energy getting mad at the obstacles that are keeping you from getting what you want? Why not take that same energy and put it into working with what you've got to build what you need, right? You got 1.1 trillion in spending power, Black people. That's more than the gross domestic product of 80% of the countries in this world. That's more money than most countries have. I hope you understand this. We spend more money as a community than most countries spend on their entire budget, the entire government budget. I'm going to look up and see how many countries spend more than $1 trillion in their governmental budget. I don't think there are that many out there. So anyway, let's move it on. So here's what I want to read on, and I want you to understand the history of this. I want you to understand the background so we can sort of dissect the Negro naysayer mindset, which exists in all of us. All of us feel this way. Even me, there are times where I feel like, I catch myself, thinking a little bit like a, like a nigga. I'm not trying to overuse that word, but really that Negro mindset, I catch myself in it sometimes. I say, boys, you acting like the biggest Negro on earth right now. You need to realize your possibilities, that you are as good as that white man. Stop thinking that your team is meant to always come in last. So I'm going to read some of this to you. I want you to think about this. This gives you the history of black hopelessness and how it was bred into you during slavery. This is from Black Labor, White Wealth, Dr. Claude Anderson's book. He says, both the disparity between white and black living conditions and inequitable allocation of resources are centuries-old problems. They are a major legacy of the peculiar institution called slavery. It was that social system that a white patriarchal society consigned blacks to live in the most inhumane conditions doing the harshest labor without just compensation. The dominant white society felt that by stripping the black slave of his humanity, all of his worldly possessions, his personal freedom, and keeping him hopeless, that blacks would be forever non-competitive and powerless. Needless to say, the dominant society's experiment in social engineering worked. Now, listen to that last part again. The dominant white society felt that by stripping the black slave of his humanity, all of his worldly possessions, his personal freedom, and keeping him hopeless, that blacks would forever be non-competitive and powerless. So when you think about black people, when you think about your own community, do you see our children, do you see our community as competitive in a global economy or non-competitive? Are the majority of our kids ready to sit there and do math and science with the best kids in the world? Or are they ready to enter a freaking dance contest, right? Or are our kids ready to go out and start businesses and engage in commerce? Or are they sitting on Facebook, gangbanging with each other, taking booty shots and crazy selfies and trying to always have fun, looking for the next party, right? Are we ready really to compete as a community? Or are we always prepared to do the electric slide in perfect sequence or have the perfect step show in college, but we're the first ones to get the C or the B- on a math or biology test? Now, everybody's not in this category. We know this. We know there's exceptions to everything. I'm talking about what you tend to see when you look around. Do you see people that are deeply committed to the idea of black excellence and black competitiveness? Or do you see people who seem more committed to the idea of perpetual mediocrity? Well, I don't know about y'all, but I see a whole lot of mediocre kids out here right now. I see a whole lot of mediocrity. And I see a whole lot of people that get really mad at me when I come in and say, okay, it's great that baby can do the booty wop at the age of 3, but is that baby going to be able to read a grade level? Have you started that child on their ABCs? I end up sounding like the hater because everybody wants to clap and get excited because the baby knows how to dance like Rihanna in her diaper. That doesn't interest me. That does not that means nothing to me. That has no value to me. It has no value to the world. So we got to ask ourselves, what are we doing with our kids? What are we doing with our time? What are we doing with each other? When you have, as a black man, when you have free time, are you spending that time getting with your brothers and talking about intelligent concepts, talking about starting businesses, talking about building community or doing great things with your life, setting goals? Or are you just chilling? Are you just talking about, whether the Cowboys beat the Giants, even though you don't own neither one of them damn football teams? Those teams don't belong to you. But yet every single statistic of every single player on that team. Ain't nothing wrong with knowing sports. I watched the NCAA championship too. It was a great game. I watched it all the way through. Loved it. But after it was done, I knew that when that coach got $5.7 million for winning that championship, 2 things I knew was, number one, none of those black players got any of that money. And number 2, I ain't getting none of that money. All right, so, oh, and then number three, we can't forget with football and all these black boys being pulled into football, that many of those guys, at least half of them, are getting brain damage. We just have to make sure that's on the table. So we just kind of know. So we have this in our heads to know whenever players kind of act out and go crazy and do ridiculous stuff, sometimes it's because they have significant brain damage because they've given so much to the sport that doesn't give them very much back. Now, but again, not criticizing football. I know brothers love football because we're really good at football. You saw, if you watched that game, for example, you saw the black men were the ones pretty much carrying the load. There were some white guys out there that were really good, but they were few and far between. It was mostly the black males that were carrying the entire event. That probably made about, about $40–50 million for various entities, whether it's corporations or universities or whatever. But that's neither here nor there. The other thing, competitive, non-competitive, and powerless. So when you think about black people, do you see powerful or do you see powerless? Do we see ourselves as powerful or powerless? How you see yourself plays a big role in how you conduct yourself. When you see yourself as powerful, you could have no power, but you'll instantly gain power just by the trajectory of your thinking. Just by deciding that you're a powerful person, then that instantly right there upgrades your power. When you see yourself as powerless, what happens is you end up, because your power, any power you have, is in contradiction to your self-perception, then you're going to pretty much diffuse any power that you have. You're going to believe that the power is not there. So when you don't believe something's there and you don't see it, then you're not going to utilize it, right? So at the end of the day, with black folks, I don't think we see ourselves as powerful people. I think that we see ourselves maybe as, powerfully talented, powerfully cool. Like we got powerful swag. We're powerfully good at sports, but we don't see ourselves as being powerful when it comes to competing globally and competing in the things that matter when it comes to putting food on the table every day or keeping your family safe every day. I don't think we see ourselves as powerful. And so the thing is that you have to understand this is all the result of social engineering. This is all the result of something that was put in place hundreds of years ago that somebody taught us to believe about ourselves, and it's worked. It works. So when you run into resistance, when you run into relatives, when you go home and you're saying to your family, why don't we start a family business? Dr. Watkins says every black family should have a family business. Let's start our family business next Sunday at grandma's house. You're going to have relatives who, again, have committed to the ideas of being non-competitive and powerless, who are going to pretty much become your Negro naysayers. They're going to say, it ain't going to work. I ain't got time. Wait, girl, what you up here talking about? Don't nobody want to hear all that, right? But yet they put a lot of energy into begging a white man for a job, filling out a resume, complaining about their situation, being upset because they can't pay the rent, or being stressed out because things are so hard. And you just don't know what I done been through. Well, I know what you done been through. That's why I'm trying to help you not have to go through it no more. But some people aren't ready for that because they're committed to the idea of being non-competitive and powerless. So when you come in and say, we're not powerless, we're powerful, and that we shouldn't be hopeless, we should be hopeful, then that's going to create resistance due to, and we talked about this before, cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is when you present an image of something that is in complete contradiction to what people already believe. Cognitive dissonance occurs when you tell somebody, oh, I know you thought the sky was blue, but the sky is actually red. They're not going to believe you. They're going to fight you, and they're going to pretty much come back at you and say, no, you're crazy, you're wrong, get out of my face, F you, and might cuss you out or whatever. But that's fine. You got to keep on going. You find the people who are ready, you start working with them. And then what happens also is that as you're building success, the Negro naysayers are watching. Because they're secretly hoping that you're going to fail, because your failure is validation and confirmation of their belief that we are non-competitive and powerless, right? It's their belief that it'll confirm their belief that the only way a black person can have economic security is to go get a job, right? So effectively, they're waiting for you to fail. And when you go and you become successful and you show that you're disciplined and committed, eventually they come over to your side. They come over and they say, wow, I would like to know a little bit more about what you're doing over here. And that's not when you say, I told you so. You don't jump in their face and say, you nigga, I told you. Don't do all that. No, You bring them in and you say, okay, let me show you. There's really a lot of money out here if you know how to go get it. And so we figured out some stuff. We have an investment club and all kinds of stuff, right? So at the end of the day, we have to kind of deal with that, because the thing about it is that there have been times where I believed I couldn't do something and I had all the ability to do it. And because I didn't believe I could do it, I didn't do it. But then there were times where I believed I could do something. And even though I wasn't supposed to be able to do it, like they say the bumblebee physically isn't supposed to be able to fly because his body's too big relative to his wing size. But the bumblebee, nobody ever told him he shouldn't be able to fly, so he flies anyway, right? Well, there were times where I thought that I was supposed to have something. So when I didn't get it, it didn't change my perception of myself. It kept, like, I would just say, well, something just went wrong. Oh no, I'm supposed to have this. This is supposed to work out. So I would try again and again and again, because I believe that the gold is buried in the backyard. You understand? I believe that the outcome is supposed to belong to me. One good example is my PhD. When I got my PhD in finance, finance is one of the toughest fields that there is to get a doctorate in, not just because the work is very difficult. You attract the smartest students from all over the world, China, Russia, etc., because the money is so good. Finance professors, in a lot of cases, are the highest paid people on campus. So they attract the best and the brightest. When I applied at Columbia and NYU, I think NYU said they had 400 applicants. They only let in 8 people. I got into Columbia. I turned down Columbia University. NYU, I was number 9 on the list, and they had their top 8. I was number 9. And so anyway, but out of 400 applicants, right? So it's very, very competitive. And what makes it even worse, though, is it also is very, very racist. White males kind of dominate the profession. So when I was going through the program, I had a lot of confidence in myself because I made straight A's all through college. School was very easy for me once I started putting as much energy into academics as I did into sports. Once I realized that I wasn't just born to be a football or basketball player, I could actually be a great player in life. I started putting that energy into my academics, and I became very academically competitive. I didn't just want to make straight A's. I actually wanted to take extra credit hours and extra classes, and I wanted to learn everything I could possibly learn. And so I had this confidence, and I felt that I was like, well, a PhD is just another degree. I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know how hard it was supposed to be. And I was like, okay, well, I'm supposed to get it. So what happened was all through the process, things kept going wrong. I kept running into roadblocks. And the thing was, I was like, man, I must be messing up. Like, this ain't supposed to be hard. Let me try again. Let me try this again and try that again. And I kept trying. I kept going. I kept going to school. I thought I'd be done. I started my first PhD program at 22. I started grad school at 22. I thought I'd be done by 26 or 27. I got done at 31, right? Because things kept going wrong. And then check this out. So when I finally finished, as I was in line at Ohio State to get my degree, to get hooded, somebody mentioned to me, or I started thinking about the fact that I did not know another black person in the country getting that degree. And I said, wait, there's got to be somebody. And I talked to somebody about it, and they said, no, you're the only African American in the United States to get the PhD this year. There's no other black person. And I said, well, what about so-and-so? They're like, oh, no, he didn't make it. Well, what about the girl at the so? No, she didn't make it either. And so that's when it hit me like, oh, crap, that's why it was hard. It was hard because this is a field that does not let black people in, right? But because I did not know these things going in, every time something went wrong, I did not attribute it to something that said that I shouldn't have what I came for. I attributed it to, give me 1 second, guys, hold on. I attributed it to just random chance, and so I kept going. And so it links to something we learned in statistics. They were actually called, it was called Bayesian Priors. Bayesian Priors, pretty much, all it pretty much says is it's a statistical model that basically says that what you believe about yourself going in, or what you believe about a situation going in, plays a big role in how you process what happens to you. Let me say that again. What you believe about yourself or about a situation going in plays a huge role in determining how you respond to what happens to you. So let's say that I walk in a room and I'm going to talk to somebody, and I'm thinking that the person hates my guts and they really don't want me there. So I come in and I say, can I get a glass of water? and they don't even hear me. They don't even respond. Because let's say they're on the phone or they're thinking about something. Then I might walk out and I'll be like, yeah, he didn't. He did. And somebody says, well, what happened? I'll say, man, I came in, I asked for a glass of water, and because he don't like me, he didn't say nothing to me. So I just walked out of there. I just walked out because I know he don't like me, and he didn't even want me in that room, right? Well, what has occurred? Let's assume the person didn't even know me. He had no ill will toward me whatsoever, but I believe that he has ill will toward me. Well, that's going to play a role in how I process how he acts toward me. Also, it's going to play a role in how I respond, right? Now, take that same situation and imagine if I think that this person is really cool with me, that they really like me, right? So I walk in, I say, hey, can I get a glass of water? And they do the exact same thing. They don't hear me, so he doesn't say anything. What am I going to do? Well, because I'm thinking we're friends, I'm going to say, hey, did you hear me? I was asking for some water. And they're going to be like, oh, okay, yeah, let me get you some water. Here you go. You know, and then we have a pleasant interaction. So how are you doing today? How's your day been? And we have a cordial, friendly interaction because I walked in with a preconceived expectation that it's going to be positive, that it's going to be friendly, that I'm talking to a friend. Do you understand? So basically what you think about yourself, what you think about your situation, and what your expectations are plays a huge role in your outcomes. If you are, and let me bring it back home here so you can understand what I'm saying. If you believe that you're a person who is just not good enough, then what's going to happen is every time you run into an obstacle, every time life knocks you down, you're going to quit and walk away because you're going to see that obstacle or that being knocked down as confirmation of what you already believed about yourself. Oh, well, I gave up because, I'm not that good. And it wasn't going to really work out for me anyway. So I decided to just go do something else, right? But if you walk into the situation believing that you're supposed to get what you came for, that you're the best, then if the obstacle knocks you down, you're going to say, oh, wait, no, this is a mistake because this isn't supposed to happen to me. I'm going to try again. And then you get knocked down again. Boom, you get up and you try again. Boom, you get up and try again. And every time you try, you're increasing your odds of success. So think about this. Your odds of success are linked to the number of times you try. The number of times you try are linked to your preconceived expectation of whether or not you can actually do this, right? So people who are hopeless and feel that they are non-competitive and powerless walk into situations with a preconceived expectation that they're going to fail. So because they think they're going to fail, they don't even try. And because you don't try, you don't get what you came for. That is what psychologists refer to as a self-fulfilling prophecy. Self-fulfilling prophecy means that what you believe is a lot of times what you're going to get, period. If you believe niggas ain't shit, then you're going to get a lot of niggas ain't shit type situations. If you believe black people are wonderful and amazing and powerful and capable, then you're going to see a lot of really positive, powerful, and capable situations. That's it. Now, so what do you hear the most in our community? Do you hear more people say niggas ain't shit? Or do you hear more people say black people are extraordinary and competitive and we can do anything, right? I really think we hear a lot more of the negative than we do the positive, right? So shifting that paradigm is very, very important for us to even have a chance to succeed. If you go into a battle, if you go into a competitive scenario, like anybody who likes sports, maybe you saw this recent national championship game. Even the team that won, it was interesting. The team that won had a lot of situations in that game where they thought they were going to lose. They were behind most of the game. When they took the lead, the other team took the lead, and then they'd have to get the lead back. Then the other team would take the lead again. All the way up until literally the last play of the game. That's when it was decided, the very last play of the game. And so what's interesting is that, in that situation, even the winner, even the team that actually walked away with the trophy had a lot of situations where they could have easily thought that they were destined to lose this game. And imagine if they walked into the game thinking, yeah, Alabama's so good, we're probably going to lose anyway. Well, every time something happened that put them behind, it would serve as confirmation of what they already believed. So when you believe that you're powerless, when you believe that you aren't supposed to win in life, then you're probably not going to win. I mean, that's a fundamental, very simple idea. So when you go into anything that you're trying to do, anything you're trying to accomplish, you got to start off believing in your possibility. And also, this is where faith comes in. This is where you got to be smart enough to know when to be ignorant. And let me explain what that means. Being smart enough to know when to be ignorant means that sometimes you got to shut your brain off. Stop thinking that you know what you're capable of accomplishing. You don't know what you're capable of. And even if you knew what you were capable of today, you don't know what you'll be capable of once you've gone through some trials and tribulations. I can tell you what I was able to do before I went through the fire was nothing compared to what I could do once I went through the fire. So because I just committed to going through the fire no matter how hot it was. When I got done, I said, wow, I am a stronger man because of the experience than I was when I began. So if I had judged my capability based on where I was when I first started the journey, I never would have began the journey to begin with. So anyway, let me keep reading more from Claude Anderson's book. In case you're wondering, I'm reading from Black Labor, White Wealth by Dr. Claude Anderson. This book is listed with a lot of my recommended books at the drboycelibrary.com. That's the drboycelibrary.com. All right, so let me keep reading. The living conditions of a people, enslaved or free, tend to reflect their status and power within the larger society. Conditions in Black America are no more or less than what was planned for them centuries ago. So he's saying that basically now, the way Black people live today is not much different from the way we lived in the past. Again, social engineering, you were engineered to be at the bottom. Solomon Northrop, a free black who was kidnapped into slavery, but later escaped, described the living standards of slaves in 1841 as befitting beasts of the field. He wrote about extraordinarily dehumanizing conditions that stripped slaves of their individuality, their labor, and often their lives. Slaves lived in dilapidated, damp, dark cabins, and their worldly possessions consisted of a few rags. A small board and a stick of wood served as their beds and pillows. There were no physical, financial, or psychological comforts for them, and worst of all, slaves were intentionally kept without hope. Intentionally kept without hope. So for a quarter of a millennium, 250 years, in slavery, you were kept without hope. So for the next 150 years, you're still maintaining the condition of being hopeless. Black people don't really want to talk much about the word hope. Either comes off as a scam, or it's something that is used to dangle in front of Black people to get them to do something, right? So that's why it's not a coincidence that prominent politicians will use the word hope in their campaign, because they're holding something over your head that you've never really had. So in your mind, you hold on, wait, give me a second here. I gotta block somebody real quick. Okay, they're holding over your head that you might get access to something you've never had, which is hope. Anyway, let me keep moving. Let me keep reading. Now, a slave's life was committed to producing wealth and comfort for white masters. The slaves suffered in silence, but routinely asked in their prayers and work songs, "When will life get better for us, Lord?" Their descendants collectively still await an answer. So, basically, the key idea here is to understand that these concepts of being, non-competitive, hopeless, powerless, etc. These are things that are taught to you. So what I encourage you to do is to think about. Somebody says, "What book is this?" This is Black Labor, White Wealth by Dr. Claude Anderson. You can check out. I've got other books I recommend if you want to see the list. You can go to the drboycelibrary.com, the drboycelibrary.com. So when you talk about this, what you have to do is shift the language, right? The language has to go from non-competitive to competitive. How do we become competitive? I know that in my life, what I try to offer you is some idea of what my perception is of what it means to be competitive. I know that I study and learn and work like a lunatic. I also know that I refuse to be a part of any group or any culture that somehow makes me feel like an oddball because I'm overly committed to being successful. Do you understand? Because the thing is that there are a lot of spaces we can go into. If you're that hardworking person, there's a lot of spaces you can go into where people will think that you're being too serious or that you're working too hard. And the thing is, if you go into Asian communities and you look at the very best people, coming out of China, coming out of India, they don't stop working. They don't stop learning. They don't just sort of do what they need to do to get by. They don't see education as sort of this extra little byproduct. They see education as a powerful gift. How many of our kids are talking about school and what they're learning in school in their spare time? Many of them are not. They see school is just something you just do. And most people reflect on the social side of school more than they reflect on the academic side, right? They'll talk about school like, oh yeah, when I was in high school, I dated a girl and I was on the football team and I went to that school. We wore blue and red. And I'm like, well, what about what you learn? I mean, is there something wrong with people who actually think about what they actually learn and the value of knowledge? Because when you get out in this world, the people who have the knowledge are the ones who win. The people who have the knowledge are the winners, period. Right now, especially in this economy, the people who know technology, they're the winners because they're outsmarting you. They're building platforms like Facebook that are making $2-3 billion a day or whatever they're making. I don't know, maybe it's $1 billion a day. It's some insane amount of money they're making at Facebook, right? The smart people are the ones who are getting ahead because they understand the stock market and they're putting their money, they're putting aside $5-10 a day and stacking wealth while the rest of us are making people rich at the mall by going Black Friday shopping every year, right? Smart people are the ones who get ahead because a smart person who is a problem solver knows how to figure out how I'm going to solve all these problems that occur in my life. How I'm going to figure out how to go pick up the kids at 2 and go to the laundromat by 3 and still get back to such and such to pay the light bill by 4 o'clock. And then also make sure dinner's ready on time. Problem solvers tend to be happier people. They tend to be more successful. That's why I told my daughters, I said, if you marry a man, I said, you know what? If you marry a man, I think it should be a plus if he plays chess or if he knows mathematics. And maybe I'm biased because I used to teach math at University of Kentucky. But one thing I can say about teaching mathematics is that I said, you know what? A lot of life ain't nothing but a word problem. That's all it is. It's a word problem. Because think about this. Remember, word problems when you would get them in school and they would scare the hell out of you because it would be so complicated. There's so much information. Sally meets Betty at 5 o'clock and asks her to buy 2 pounds of butter. And people would just freeze because they don't know what to do. They would just freeze up. Oh, right? So because you froze up, now you went from having maybe a 70% chance of getting it right to a 20% chance because freezing up creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. You literally, by freezing up, have reduced your chances of actually solving the problem correctly because you're putting all your energy into freezing up when you should put your energy into solving the damn problem, right? Well, what I learned in mathematics is how to calm your ass down, stare at the problem for a minute, don't feel like you need to know it right away. Just read it. And then if you don't understand it, read it again and read it again. Then take little notes. Okay. Sally meets Betty at 4. Okay. Butter. She's get the butter, 2 pounds. Right. And then what happens when you calm down and you focus and you believe? Again, this goes back to hope and power. If you believe that you have the power to give yourself a good chance of solving the problem and you're confident, then you calm down and you just do the job. Right? Just like that football game, right? The quarterback the last night, I think sports analogy is perfect for this because so it's the last 2 minutes of the game, Alabama scores a touchdown. It looks like Alabama's going to win the game. So the quarterback, instead of, freezing up and getting nervous saying, oh my God, we're going to lose. He says, you know what? We're good. Let's calm down. We're going to get down the field. We're going to score a touchdown. We're going to win this game. Right? If he didn't have that mindset, then he never would have won. Because he would have spent all of his energy panicking and none of his energy actually solving the damn problem. And that's what a lot of us do. A lot of us will see a problem and will freak out over it. And when you freak out, you make the problem worse. So I told my girls, I said, as a man, I can say that because I learned how to solve word problems, what that does is that translates into how I live my life. When you come to me with a problem, I don't freak out. I don't start crying and moaning, oh, Lord, it be what we going to do. It's going, the world's coming to an end. I say, okay, let's see what we're dealing with. What's the issue? Okay, so what you need to do. Okay, so you need $222 by 4 o'clock today, and you don't have no money in the bank account. Okay, well, did you try this? Okay, so tell me what else is going on, right? And you solve the problem, right? And that is the same skill that I think every person should have, especially when I said, I told my daughter, I'm a little old school. I said, look, I saw my grandma when she would talk to my grandfather, and there would be a problem. And my grandfather would say, don't worry about it. I got this. I'm going to solve this problem. And that made her have confidence in him as a man. She said, my man, I got a real man in the house, because when I give him a problem, he doesn't freak out and get depressed and start drinking, right? Because a lot of people do it. They'll get depressed over a problem and not even do anything, and the problem will get worse. Instead, he would say, don't worry about it. I got it. I'll figure it out, right? So the ability to just kind of figure it out is huge when it comes to being successful in life. So that's why I think it's crazy to me that we don't have our kids in situations at an early age where they're being taught to think critically and how to solve problems. If you got a child, have your child learn quieting the mind. I like what the sister says about quieting the mind as well. Meditation, I think, is great. It's funny, I just talked to Russell Simmons 2 days ago, and he mentioned that he's opening yoga studios to teach Black people to meditate. I said, you know what? I think that would actually be a good thing, because I think a lot of people need to quiet their minds because they have so much chaos going on. So learning how to quiet their mind, learning how to think critically, learning how to solve problems, learning how to kind of think strategically. Play chess, not checkers. A lot of people never even learn how to play checkers. They don't forget chess. because why? Well, because you spent your whole life sort of in this environment where you're taught to think instinctively about everything and not have any sort of long-term discipline when it comes to reaching your goals and solving your problems. And that's what I see as kind of an issue, right? You think about most of the problems that many of us have. Many of us have a lot of self-created problems, like maybe, I can't pay. How am I going to pay 4 babies' mamas? Child support when I'm only making $10 an hour. Well, that's a problem you created with your penis, right? And no disrespect to those who did, but it's true. Same thing with the women, right? I mean, you knew he had 3 kids when you slept with him, but you did it anyway. So now you got to figure out how to get the money to pay for the kids, because he's not paying nothing, because he trying to pay child support for 4 women and he only making $10 an hour. You go deeper. How do I prepare to get a job when I have no education? Well, you did kind of choose not to get any education or any skill, but you also chose not to learn how to start a business, because every time a Dr. Boyce video appeared on your news feed, you instead wanted to watch the video from WorldStar, right? Because you're trained to think instinctively. You're trained to go after what you want instead of focusing on what you need, right? You're trained to do what you want to do instead of doing what you need to do, right? And I'm not making fun of you. I'm not telling you that you should listen to me. Who am I, right? But I am here to say that a lot of the challenges that we have were clearly preventable. And so a lot of times, but here's the thing though, here's what kind of gives them a little bit of a justification for that behavior, is that this hopelessness is what leads to sloppy behavior. The hopelessness is what leads to you not caring. I mean, if you don't have any hope for the future, then why would you plan for the future, right? If you don't have any belief or hope that you're ever going to get out of poverty, then why would you try? Why would you even, think about it. That's why people think about it. You ever see somebody that's been crushed in a relationship? They've been crushed so much in love that they can't fall in love no more, because love creates hope, and they don't want hope, because when the hopes get dashed, it crashes everything, and they don't want to go through that anymore. Well, a lot of us as a people, I think, have gone through that. You've gone through so much trauma, so much disappointment, so much pain, that you really don't want to have hope, because hope is a dangerous thing for some people. Hope can be a very dangerous thing. So, in a way, maybe what we're doing is radical, because we're talking about taking the risk of actually having real hope and believing that you have real power, really putting real energy into solving real problems. Things like the $5 a day investment plan is one of those things. I showed you mathematically. I did this the other day. I taught my students in the investment class the details on how to do this. Basically, I said, look, if you invest $5, if you had done this 20 years ago and invested $5 a day, do you know in 10 years you'd have, based on if you did it in the stock market, in 10 years you'd have about $29,000. In 20 years you'd have about $100,000. In 30 years you'd have about $281,000. And most of this money, a chunk of this money, would come from interest. Out of that $281,000, $54,000 would come from the principal that you put in. $54,000 is what you would contribute. $226,000 is what would come from the interest, right? It's very basic. It's very simple. I can explain it to somebody, whether they went to school or didn't go to school. I can explain it to a child, right? But a lot of people won't do it. Why? Well, I guess because they don't believe it's possible, and they think that they're going to get rich by giving their money away at the mall. Okay, that's it. All right. Well, that's it, guys. You know, I'm going to shut it down, and I want to reiterate to you, if you're interested in learning how the stock market works, we have a great class on how to invest in the stock market. You can join. It's a program. It's a program, so we meet every week. All the material that we've covered so far is available as a recording, so you won't miss a beat. We meet every Monday night at 8:30. We also meet during the week to do a Q&A. You can sign up if you're interested at blackfinancialliteracy.com. You can get a discount there at blackfinancialliteracy.com.